Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for Truth show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, and I welcome you back with us again tonight. And, you know, life is very interesting because so much happens. Some of it's planned, some of it's not. But then things happen that are like miracles. And we go, how did that happen? How did I meet that person? Where's this synchronicity that is felt? You know, sometimes you go in a room and you feel like you've been there before, and you speak to someone and you instinctively and instantly feel comfortable, and the conversation just exudes out without you even thinking or having organized, and the words, even the thoughts, change and evolve as they go on. And tonight we have such a show, and first what we'll do is I'll introduce him to you. An engineer, if you put his pictures up on the screen, this is Shmuel Hoffman, who's an award-winning filmmaker, creative director, producer, really so many things, whose work bridges artistry and impact. He's a classically trained violinist who once toured with Yo-Yo Ma and Daniel Barenboim. He now heads Hoffman Productions, which crafting human-centered films. Are you seeing with the president of Israel? Human-centered films like, you know, that actually more than people, but also for clients, very large clients, magnitudinous clients, you know, tremendous, Lexus, Disney, you know, Harvard, and many, many global nonprofits. As a selected council member in the Israeli president's Voice of the People initiative, he plays a crucial role in strengthening Jewish and non-Jewish relations through storytelling, which I find very interesting, and dialogue. And, you know, his films have earned many honors, Oscar qualifying festivals, and really he's done so many things. I could speak about him on and on and on. Many of the principles, philosophies, and truths that he holds dear come from the Jewish Torah, the spiritual Kabbalah, and just really Hebrew family life. And he draws his energy, his fuel, from spiritual learning, from visual arts, and his belief that really we're here for more than just eating, sleeping, and talking, and that there's a higher meaning to life, and that we're all correlated and related. And so let's go ahead and bid a warm welcome to Shmuel Hoffman to A Time for Truth show.
Hi, good to meet you.
Shalom.
Shalom. Doctor, good to meet you here.
It's a pleasure to meet you. And, you know, we were talking before the show, and we were saying how it's nice to be able to converse. And we were relating how on the Time for Truth show that's what we do. And, you know, I'm so happy to have you here. When I was curious about, so when you were very young, did you immediately think you were going to do music? Or did you think you were going to do film? Or did you think you were going to be an airplane pilot? Or what was your dream, or what were your dreams?
I mean, the music piece came really like straight from my parents. They were both musicians, so from the age of 4, they would kind of center. Can we actually like? Doesn't need. This will be cut anyway, right? So I can figure out where my iron line is. You want me to look over there or there? Like, which one is?
Oh, it doesn't matter, you know. You know, we'll just.
Oh, yeah, I go back and forth between the two. So
in our show, we don't have to cut anything, because what I do for the viewers is say, you see, that's life.
Yeah.
Life is what it is, and things happen, and this way they appreciate it. So when I had someone here the other day, she was terrified of being on the show, and then we just did the show, and the audience loved it because they go, you know what? Maybe
it's authentic.
Maybe I can do it too.
It's authentic.
Go ahead.
So no, my parents.
But anyway, so you can look at this camera, that camera.
My parents really are musicians, and they wanted their children also like to become musicians, and they put me on the track, violin, viola, and you know I did this for 24 years. It was very successful, but what kind of gave that then kind of the switch in some way that became religious.
Yes.
More spiritual. I sought out God, and then with that Shabbat, I kept Shabbat. Yes. But as you know, like when you are in the classical field, what are the main concert days? Friday night and Saturday night.
Oh my Lord.
The 2 main dates, right?
In the Hebrew religion.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, before, so we don't leave any of the viewers with misunderstood words. For them, what is Shabbat for them, so they understand?
So Shabbat is the rest day. For some it's Saturday, for some it's in the Christian religion Sunday, etc.
Right. Okay.
And we keep a rest. Like we don't touch anything. We don't go to work. We don't touch anything electronic. Anything that can create something, we stay away. Okay. And we focus on family. We focus on prayer, on good food, on a good drink.
That's good.
And community, right? It's a day for community. And it has a really strong implication. It's not just like, oh, one day, Saturday, I want to chill, and then I go to work. This is a non-optional thing to not rest on Shabbat. It's like really like an obligation.
Okay.
So I knew this coming in, and basically I knew I had no choice and no chance like to win this thing by being a classical musician.
Wow.
And then I gave it up at 24, 25. I finished everything, my studies. I did all the concerts, as you alluded in the intro, toured with really great people.
Absolutely.
But then, God was more important to me. And I said, okay, where is my next kind of thing? And then I evolved it from there slowly to filmmaking. But that has a backstory that my grandfather gave me like many, many years prior in my puberty, a camera in my hand.
Oh, he did?
It was like a big bag. This
He
is for
He
you.
gave it to you.
Correct.
Was he in movies or filmmaking?
No, it was just like his hobby, and he had a very fancy for what it was back then in the GDR, right? And like really like thousands of dollars equivalent, in camera stuff, and he handed it all over to me, and then I took it, I experimented with it, did a couple things, and then from there the love for the visual storytelling really grew out of it. And that was all while I was still in music. Mind you, music is still a very picturesque like thing. When you play, I drew pictures in my scores. So whatever I would see, oh, it's flowery, there's a lady coming, I would see this in my inner eye, and then you would play in that way.
It's very aesthetic.
Yes, it is. It brings up the emotions and then transports it from my instrument to you. My images in the music, in the sound waves, into your ear.
That's right.
So music is already like something visual for many people, and it was not a crazy like stretch to make that work, from one to another. So that's how I then ended up from there, from religion over to visual media and becoming like a director and a producer.
Very interesting. What was your grandfather's name?
Rudolph.
Rudolph.
Yes.
Interesting.
Rudolph.
And so, it's amazing how the lineage happens. When I was maybe around 15, I asked my father, who was a physician, Ruben, and I said to him, what happens when we die? And he said to me, well, I think you carry on for me. I said, how do you mean?
That's beautiful.
And he goes, well, I think the things that I start, and because we're family, we have certain traditions and certain purposes that we share in common, and that you'll keep them going forward.
Sure.
And it's very interesting how your grandfather Rudolph
It's always, right? Like from generation to generation, whatever the fathers and the grandfathers pass on. We know this from Judaism, from the Torah, right? From the biblical texts. They always pass that on to the next generation, want this to carry further. So, yeah.
And it makes sense because it brings us to what we're going to speak about today. Because one of the things we wanted to do for you is, we have so much variety in the world, which is beautiful. Because if you think back to high school, in the summertime, maybe there were times where there wasn't much that was interesting to you and you got bored. When the day was so long and you said, my God, I want something new. And so reality is, it's so beautiful that we have so many different creeds, races, religions on the planet. But yet we've suffered so many wars, so much violence, over the same differences that we actually sought when we were younger, and that we seek in our music and we seek in our films, and to have interest in life. And so one of the reasons that we had the show was, there's so much going on right now in Palestine. And myself being a Jewish guy, I said, I need to get someone who is more of an authority than I, more of a doctor and, a humanitarian. And so I wanted to get someone, and we decided, Shmuel and I decided to make this show. And so one of the things we want to go over is some of the philosophies. What are the basic principles of anything? Because, it's like in medicine. What's the principle of medicine? Is not to harm the patient, is to help the patient, and not to prescribe and recommend anything that would be deleterious. And so it's very interesting because in the Jewish religion, there's a principle that I wanted you to discuss called Tikkun Olam. What does Tikkun Olam mean in English?
So there's different layers, but I think the base function of Tikkun Olam is fixing the world. That the world is not perfect yet. And then it needs an entity to come in and perfect it. So when we go now a level higher, God could have just made all of this perfect, right? If he's an infinite being and he is someone who can do anything, so why didn't he create a perfect world? So the reason why Tikkun Olam is there in the world is because God had the intention of creating a world that is imperfect and needs someone to take care of it and bring it forward, to make it better on a daily basis. And in order to do that, he created man and everything around this in the world. And we are here given the task to take this world and make it every day a little bit better. But why is that? What's the real reason? And I think we don't know, but we have maybe clues. One of the clues is God wants a relationship. As an example, when two people sit next to each other and don't do anything, they're on their phone, what do? They don't connect much.
No.
Now think of a situation where both people are sent out, where there was a hurricane, which I have experienced because I went out actually when Katrina was hitting.
Yes.
And those two people go out and their mission is to help those people in Hurricane Katrina land to fix whatever needs to be fixed. What is their relationship like after they come back from, so to say, fixing their little thing and helping people?
Oh.
It's very strong.
Yeah.
That happens in the military, that happens in the police forces. Wherever people do and fix something together and bond,
Yes.
that's where connection is built.
That's right.
And that's what God wanted. He wanted an ally between us and him, and really forge a relationship so that we could build something, we could fix the world, and therefore connecting to God and to other human beings.
It's so important because really, when we look at it, this principle of tikkun olam, of repairing the world, and olam in Hebrew means world, and tikkun, I suppose, repairing, make better, improve, is what do we all share in common? For our children, we want to give them a better world. And sometimes, when I was a little boy, I would wonder, why did people, my uncle would argue with my father about the price of avocados. And that he spent too much money on the avocados, and in Spanish, aguacate. And I would look at them arguing, and my mother, who was the lioness, she would roar and start fighting with my uncle, and I'd be sitting there watching this. But, you know, Tikkun Olam makes so much sense to me about repairing the world. And now, I'm curious, so Tikkun Olam, does that come from the early scripture of the Torah, or is that something later on, or is there any way of knowing, or?
So, it's also in levels. It first starts that the Torah talks in broad terms, and then we come later on and then add kind of like certain meanings or learn certain things out from that. I think Tikkun Olam is not a new concept. It comes really early on from the early texts, but then are kind of at some point taken for a certain generation, and in that generation it's being extracted. It was there already, maybe buried, but then it was extracted and really brought to the forefront so that that generation, a later generation, would then kind of take this and imbue this in their actions. And I think one of the reasons is why certain things are uncovered, like archaeology, in different ways at different times, because people are ready at different times, and people have different needs in order to be awakened, made sensitive, to connect to God in different ways. Because in the olden days, the connection was maybe through something else, let's say through the sacrifice. Then the sacrifice fell away. Now we needed something else in order to connect to God again. So Tikkun Olam is basically, since the world was created, because with Adam and Eve, the world was already imperfect after they ate from the fruit, right? So therefore, Tikkun Olam is as old as the Bible, as old as the world was created, but it was made aware at a time, in a later time, so that we can go out and use this, because there's so much strife between people. And that's why we are here, right? We are here because there's strife in the world, there's strife between religions, and with ourselves, and within our communities. And therefore, we need to take the awareness of Tikkun Olam to first fix ourselves, and then go out and make peace with one another. And I think this is what you are on the forefront here. And that's why we sit here, because that's what we want to try to put into work, into this world, with Tikkun Olam.
Makes total sense, because when we go back to very fundamental, basic principles, there's so much history to them. There's so much tradition to them. And when we look at the world thousands of years ago, when things were at a simpler level in terms of population, in terms of obviously the communication between groups of people, what was mankind trying to do? Come out of the caves, civilize, find his goodness, find how to relate, and went through, like you said, a lot of strife, a lot of war, a lot of conflict. And Tikkun Olam, very, very interesting, because it's such a basic concept that really, as you're watching the show with us, you probably say, yeah, I have that in my religion, to help the world, to do, some people say, do God's work, and to, have us, they call in the Catholic religion, they call it a sacrament, like in the Jewish religion, a mitzvah. And brings me to something I want to ask you, is there's another concept I found very interesting.
Is it Naaseh v'nishma?
Yeah, Naaseh v'nishma.
Can I go back? Can I ask you, what is your personal Tikkun Olam? Because you said, every religion has that. So it's on the large, on the big, like you know, how do I help God or what do I do for God? But it's also within you in this micro. When I ask you, what's your own tikkun olam? Because
What's my own tikkun olam? Well, you know, I had a show just before you came on with an unbelievably gifted singer. She's got unbelievable voice.
Did she sing here?
She didn't sing tonight.
Because I know you have sometime that you had someone play here. I saw that.
Yes.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, but you asked me what would my tikkun olam be? What would be my repairing of the world?
Yeah.
Would be almost to be willing to expose myself, not be prepared, but since I'm so demanding at times, demand of myself and not care if I didn't come across well, something totally spontaneous like this one. And I'll translate it for you as I make it up. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu. No, but hold on. So now we have to translate this, right? So this is, wow, wow, God, you're unbelievable. Wow, how you've made so many things. I've got to do something good. Let's see what I can find. So, you know, the last part I've totally made up. So I apologize to all my Jewish brethren, but we wanted to do something instantaneous. So I'll incorporate something else that comes from another beautiful song that says, "Hear, O Israel." So, but we'll incorporate this now for the world. It says, "Shema Yisroel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad." Now, I won't translate that, but I'll take the meaning of God and listening to God and to hear sometimes God and the part of God within us and whatever, right, that we should have in the world. And, you know, just look as I looked at the news today and I realized what I must do. Yes, I will today. And, you know, so you asked the tikkun olam, and that would be it, to just do spontaneous, not to have it choreographed, to be willing to someone say, well, why did you do it this way? Another one do it that way. And what would be the
Because
example?
you never know where the fixing is coming from. That's why.
Yeah, and then the example would be to show that we all have to be open and make ourselves vulnerable.
Yeah.
So the other ones can come in.
Yeah.
And then that they see, oh, you know, I was a little bit rough on you, but you listened. Maybe I should do that more.
Right. That's
my
a
tikkun
fixing,
olam.
yeah.
That's my tikkun olam.
I love that.
That to actually be able for all of us to see the miracle that life is.
Yeah, totally. And I think that is the purpose of life, actually, or one of the main purposes of life.
Right. How about for you? What would tikkun
what's
olam
my
be for
tikkun
you?
olam?
Yeah.
You know, I go really like micro. My first tikkun olam is that I have just a marriage that sustains, which sounds very odd for people. Like, what sustains it?
No,
because I come really from a family, and my wife and I come from families where, on all sides, literally, they're divorced 3 times. So I knew my tikkun was, as a base level, fix first to be with someone for a long time.
Stay.
Thank God I'm married now 18 years, right? This year, so 18 chai, right? Life.
Congratulations.
Like, right? And I have 5 children, and
wow.
I can't do anything else if I can't fix that. And there's still a lot of fixing, even further micro, like in myself and this and that. And maybe the fights, we have to eliminate that maybe at some point. But to stay together through thick and thin and stay married even against, no, I don't want anymore. I'm done. Why? Because I've learned as soon as it crashes the wall, you should be out of here. That's how I have learned it to my parents. Not to stick to it.
That's right.
And if I can stick through this, and you stick through this, then you can stick through everything else, because there are bigger things to solve, right? We are here, you know, like want to make peace in the world.
More than just us.
You can't sit here and talk about other people making peace if you don't try at least really, really hard to put the piece in your own life together. That would be my tikkun olam, and that would be my philosophy of a first step. And then, of course, from there it emanates a lot of things. But that would be my baseline.
Yeah, dignity, honor, respect.
Yes.
Yes.
And then I can do this with someone else too.
That's right.
Yeah.
First to do it within what you have innately very close to you.
Right.
Absolutely. You know, something very interesting that I read from a philosopher and that I've seen also and I've experienced is that if you really know someone and you really love them, the little tiniest thing can set up an atom bomb. Because
Absolutely.
there's so much love that just the littlest, smallest thing,
Boom.
boom.
I mean, that's what the atom bomb does on a micro level, sets off this insane energy. That's exactly that.
Yeah. And for some reason now, as we were talking, I don't know why, I got totally from you now, almost even with the music, you playing your violin, and with the music like really coming out strong, at some performance that you did. I don't know where this came from, and it just came over to here.
Right.
And it's amazing that that occurred, because I would have no reason to have that occurred, and yet it occurred. And that to me is the miracle of life. And I want to ask you, because we're nearing the end of the show, so we're going to have another segment.
We can jump forward, sure.
But let's finish this concept. So the concept of Naseh v'nishma, which is basically that we definitely will perform what we should perform, the deeds that we're supposed to perform. So we have only about a minute or so left. But why don't we cover this before we end the show? What is the Hebrew tradition of that we should perform? What is the right thing to do?
So I'm putting it the next level. Ready?
Sure.
Perform. Nase means to do. Venishma, and then to listen, then to understand. So most people, I think most societies, maybe even religions, start from first the inner understanding and then deriving from it the deed. And comes Judaism along and says, no, it's the other way around. First you do, and then you understand. Why is that so? Because there might be a time where you try to understand and you will never get there to understand it. And what happens if you don't understand it? Most people would not do anything. They would just sit and do, right? Just sit still. Comes this concept and says, why don't you do first and then try to understand it? I have an example for you. One example is, could you explain what you have never had really experienced love? And then someone comes and explains all of the glory of love to you. You could not understand what that person, you couldn't relate to it. You couldn't see what that person experienced. So only the jumping into the pond and experiencing love, now I understand and hear what you have to say to me. And the reason why we do this is we jump into action first so that we keep moving. I'm not thinking, should I do a good deed? Should I give you money because you asked me for money in the street? And many people have the approach and say, oh, is he good taking the money for good, or is he just taking? No, it's not up for you to judge. First give it, and you did your deed. What that other person is doing with your money, that's up to them, and between them and the Creator.
That's right.
But I have exercised my muscle in giving. So in many cases, put the thinking and the understanding aside and see what it feels like to do first, because you can still course correct afterwards. Next time you have to say, you know what, it wasn't for me, it didn't work out for me, I'll do it differently. But more often than not, if you try first to understand and then do, I might not even get to the deed that kind of brings me to a next step, whatever the next step is in your life.
Very interesting. Yeah, it makes total sense. And as you were saying that, it's very liberating, because when you give without expecting anything in return, you really are giving.
Yes.
You really are releasing,
Yes.
you are really gifting,
Yes.
and you let the other person decide.
Yes.
It's a beautiful
I haven't
concept.
thought it this way, but this makes totally sense. It's true.
You're
It's so
freeing
true.
you're freeing
You
that
get rid
person.
really of judgment, actually.
You probably would change that other person so drastically, because they say, wow, I can do whatever without any obligation.
Absolutely.
You don't expect anything back.
Right.
And that person would leave there probably almost in a trance.
Right.
In their own world. Wow.
And then the universe is actually so balanced that you not knowing it's coming back to you. That's the concept also on an even further out, zoomed out version of Nase Venishma. It will come back to you.
And you know what? This is totally unplanned. But I'm going to do something for Tikkun Olam, for all of the people in the Middle East. When you watch this show, with this concept that we just went over with Shmuel and I, in the Middle East, no matter the religion that we have, the color that we have, and the faith that we have, let's take a look and see if this makes sense to you. When someone has given you something and let you do what you wanted with that. Maybe when you were a little boy or girl and your parents gave you a gift and they didn't tell you, no, not there, no, not here, no, you have to do it here. And you probably got very upset. Probably if you were Arab or Jew, white, yellow, or black, you wanted to be left alone. So let's apply this principle where we actually give to someone else and grant them some freedom. And let's see if all sides cannot benefit, and that from this desert that I find is a lot of the Middle East starts to grow flowers and plants and fruits and nuts that all the people can share, so there's not so much hunger and famine. It probably is impossible, but it would make a nice movie that I would entrust my friend next to me.
We'll always make a good movie. Because that's what movies are all about. It's the connection, right?
There we go. So that's for all of our friends in the Middle East and Palestine, wherever you are, for all the way from the United States of America, we send you our greetings. We wish you well, and we wish you a very good week. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
It was great. Thank you.
First segment. We will continue on some other segments. I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll see you on the next episode. It is a time for truth.
This show was sponsored by A Time for Truth Foundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet